Welcome to Prometheus Unlimited. Today we have an exclusive interview with Jauron Pigg about America as a police state, and Jauron is well experienced police brutality himself, and he's here to tell his story. So,
yeah, well, basically my situation with the police has been one that's been ongoing. It's been happening with local police down department in Kokomo, Indiana. I guess the culmination of the event was when I was arrested, as well as my father was arrested on the night of December 20th at a Med 1 center. And the odd thing is that I was arrested for trespass and invasion of privacy, which usually you don't think of being in a place that would be considered a public place, that you would be arrested for trespassing, especially when, you know, there was no form of bad act committed on my behalf or my father's behalf.
Mm-hmm. And you're a local celebrity actor and comedian, correct? That's what
I try to do. I try to do a lot of things in the community. I've done stand-up in and around the central Indiana area. Mm-hmm. And I'm an ex-athlete, so I know a lot of folks around there from just playing ball in high school, getting to know folks that way. So kind of avenues that you can use to as a medium to help out and try to make things better in the community or with the people that you're, you know, working and living with.
So you say your father's involved in this too, and he's still in jail. And,
that's correct.
His bail has been. I know you were talking to us earlier about how his bail was
$50,000.
Yeah, very unreasonable. Could you speak more about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a situation where we do have rights, and everyone has a right to, you know, be protected by the law. And his 8th Amendment rights, I feel, are being violated. And if you know any case law in the state of Indiana, there are a couple cases where, you know, excessive bails have not been allowed. But you have to look at, too, the process that you have to go through with appeals takes time. We were both initially arrested and placed on, my bond was $25,000 cash, which meant they would not allow a 10% or a bail bondsman to be involved with the payment of my bond, which I think is excessive considering the charges. In my father's case, he's facing, you know, the same situation, but the bond is doubled, a $50,000 bond, cash only. They are not allowing a 10% or a bail bondsman, which is something that is definitely detrimental to getting a defense together as far as having a lawyer. Not many people I know that we can't afford $50,000 cash to be freed from the county jail to then get a lawyer and fight a case. I mean, your total expenditures in you know, in that instance are going to be, you know, well upward of anywhere $75,000 to $100,000.
And these are the taser scars that the police put on you?
Yeah, I was tasered, and the actual bar broke off inside of me. So while I was handcuffed and taken into custody at the Howard County Jail, one of the Kokomo Police Department officers, I was offered no medical, just reached in there inside my body and actually pulled that bar, physically pulled the bar outside of me from the taser. And I was tasered on this side as well, which I don't know if it's going to be as visible, but there's a kind of a zipper line somewhere on this side of my body somewhere.
I see it.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of long, so obviously I was tasered more than once.
Wow.
It's a situation that nobody wants to be in jail. No one wants to be locked in a cage like a zoo animal. I mean, most people fight for the rights of animals. I'm sure if you ask someone from PETA, they would say it's not good to lock your dog or your cat in a cage, let alone a wild animal. But we're talking about
people all the time.
Exactly, and it's just something that's been increasing, and the severity of punishments is more, and you know, you're getting folks that are doing lesser crimes that are facing these severe penalties. And I mean, when you're in the county jail there in Howard County, you know, one thing that I can think of is you're given a spoon to eat with and a cup. Once you are taken into custody, That's the only spoon or implement you will have to eat with. That's the only implement you will have to drink with. You don't know who's had those before you. It's a little brown, ragged plastic spoon that someone could have been biting, chewing on. They have marks on them, etc. And those are the only things you get. And it's not a sanitary condition because you have no means to wash it other than your in-cell little sink, and the water doesn't get very warm, and you don't have soap, at least, for a while, unless you're able to get money to where you can buy that on your books for commissary items. And so there's no sanitary means of even keeping the implements that you have to eat and drink with, let alone the conditions that my father is still under, that I was under. We were locked down for 20 hours of a day with 4 hours free daily, and that's it. So basically we were in a maximum security situation, and for initial charges of trespass and an invasion of privacy in my case, and then you have the police tacking on these felony offenses for whatever reason, and I feel that that's just a punishment. It's an attack on an individual. Right,
and this hasn't gone to trial, and there hasn't been hasn't gone to trial yet, and they're assuming you're guilty by punishing you. I mean, there's punishment before a verdict.
And you've contacted several civil rights organizations about this incident.
Yes, I have. I've talked to a few people, so hopefully there will be help coming for the people that police the police, for the watchdogs that are out there to defend our rights. And make no mistake, your rights will be taken from you. They will be trampled upon if you do not stand collectively and defend them. Our rights are, under fire right now as American citizens, and we should stand up collectively and say, hey, we're not going to stand for this. There's no reason that, you should be put into a situation where you have an excessive bail. There's no reason that you should be beaten and mistreated and mishandled by a police department. Those are people that are supposed to be helping you. If you're a wrongdoer, they're supposed to be taking those folks into custody too. But they are not judge, jury, and executioner. And I think that for the most part, that's how this situation is being handled, amongst others, right there in Howard County. And I mean, there have been a lot of here at the first of the year. There's been a situation with a man that there was a shooting, and it's a situation where you get part of the story in the Kokomo Tribune, in the local papers, the perspective, and on the radio, but you're only getting the version of the police. You're only getting the version of those folks that are making the accusation. So therefore, you're kind of being condemned in the public eye.
Yeah.
In a small community, I think it really makes for, a difficult way to have a fair trial.
Kokomo does not have a very good journalistic record as far as anything goes.
I would.
Speaking of record, let's sort of move to discussing the particular officer who has been found has a record of falsifying reports.
Yeah.
Who's the I assume who's the arresting officer?
Yes.
In this case, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, one of the arresting officers is an officer that does have, at least one incident that's documented publicly where he's been docked 10 days of vacation pay. He's also been, suspended for 10 days in an infraction that occurred. But the police department and the folks there in Howard County have not released the information as to why to the public. And as a public servant, that's information that we deserve to hear, we deserve to know. If you're a police officer and you're a liar, it is probably not in the best interest of the people you're policing to know that, hey, you could be, arrested by someone that may falsify a report, or someone that may tell a lie to make sure that you're arrested.
Yeah. And I think it's indicative of, basically how the police have been given more and more authority in Indiana. I mean, there was a legal precedent recently that allowed, basically you cannot resist a cop even if they have no reason to be in your home. They can still enter, and you're not allowed to defend yourself in any way. You would be at fault for defending yourself from an officer who was illegally entering your home. He could be off duty even. as far as I understand the law. So, and I know there was a cop in Noblesville who was drunk driving, and well, I guess he was in Indianapolis when he was drunk driving, and they got him on video, you know, going to the liquor store buying, you know, fifth of vodka or whatever, and he was drunk driving his patrol car and then hit and killed someone, you know, and so I don't believe much was done to punish that officer. I think it was just a suspension.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where who's policing the police?
Yeah.
Who's watching the watchman? Who's making sure that the rights of the people are protected? Because in those situations, you're allowing an officer, a person who's still a civilian, a citizen within this country, to, in effect, kind of play God. I mean, you've got a situation where they're above the law. There's nothing that they can do wrong, whether it's taking your life or, you know, causing you injury or upset. They face no sort of punishment for those things. There's no, you know, and as a citizen, you would face, you know, retribution and reprisal against your being if you were to accuse an officer of something. And, you know, in a lot of cases, it's there in black and white. It's on videotape, and you know, there are people that witness these things, and still they're being swept under the rug. Yeah.
It's like I think there was an Indianapolis drug task force that became corrupt not too long ago, and
I'm reading about
they found out they were selling what was guns out of the trunk of their car, and then they were busting certain drug dealers, taking the drugs and then selling them to other drug dealers. So seems to be
they operate
tradition
with a lot of power, and they also many police officers try to do it without revealing their identity a lot of times. And I know in Jauron's case, they refuse to identify themselves with their name and badge number, which they are required to by law. I know also that this happens quite frequently with a lot of these Occupy protests. You know, people demand their name and badge number, and you know, giving them the option of becoming faceless is also giving them an extraordinary power, because they can operate however they want to with virtual immunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely agree with that, and that pretty much was the situation when you are dealing with someone, especially in Kokomo, where, I mean, I remember reading a story recently within the last year or so where an officer's uniform was stolen. We've also had, you know, in the past, a guy that was going around impersonating an officer with, you know, sirens and etc. in his truck and pulling folks over. So you want to know who you're dealing with is actually a police officer. There
have been a couple other incidents of corruption by the Kokomo police force that I can think of. One of them was what caused them to be investigated by the FBI, which was the fact that a pair of cops were being paid off by a local business owner who owned a strip club to basically warn them of police raids before they would occur. And so I know that several officers were investigated by the FBI, which had to come down. You know, so I think that's a clear sign that there may be a systemic problem as far as Howard County.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, if we don't take action, if we don't come together, you know, this and set a precedent, then you know, this is just going to keep snowballing. You know, and it's going to get so big that you know, no one's going to be able to speak out. So you got to speak out now while you still have the opportunity. You know.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I definitely agree with that. With my situation that has happened, and as I said, this has been ongoing. The harassment by the police force has been unjust and undue, but it's been allowed to prevail. They've been able to do it. They've gotten away with it, and you know, you've got to stand up, not just as an individual, but as a collective. One person standing up, they brush you away, shove you to the side. But when, you know, your whole community is aware of a situation, it's something that has to be recognized and dealt with. And I mean, this is something that in Howard County and Kokomo, these folks haven't had to deal with. I know that recently there was also the Occupy Kokomo folks that had run in with the sheriff. From the video that's on YouTube and what I've seen and heard, there seemed to really be no infraction other than, you know, these guys actually taking advantage of their First Amendment rights to free speech. And I know there was a question of them having masks on, but from what I saw, there was no mask on, and still that doesn't really justify the manner in which they were handled.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where having a mask on is illegal anyway. I mean,
I don't know any state statute about that.
Yeah,
either,
I don't
so.
either. I don't think wearing a mask is illegal.
But I mean, I guess
unless you're using it for a crime to hide your identity.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
then I don't think that's a specific charge anyway either. So.
Right. Now, I don't think these guys were. They're definitely not in the commission of any crime unless it's a crime to stand up for your rights. So I mean. When people see, you know, folks from the Occupy movement, they might think, oh, why are these people standing here? Why are they sitting here? Why are they occupying this area? What do they want to accomplish? Well, they're accomplishing what we should all be accomplishing, which is the assertion of our rights. And, you know, we're guaranteed those rights as citizens. We have the right to free speech, free press. And if you do not use those rights, obviously they will be taken from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the Occupy movement, it seems like to me the Occupy movement started as sort of an economic, sort of based around sort of economic issues.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of just because of the way that the law enforcement has been handling these protesters, it's sort of shifting now to trying to combat what people view as a police state. Mm-hmm. You know, and in the case of the Free Jauron Pigg movement, what sort of things have sort of arisen as sort of the first beginnings of an outcry about your particular case? You know, representing the larger problem of a police state.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think definitely that the situation that occurred does represent the police forcing that police state upon us, and in multiple facets, from being wrongly arrested and to being denied your Eighth Amendment right to, you know, bail and preparing a defense at trial. Also, you know, it's made me aware too, and hopefully a lot of other folks, that, you know, community awareness is first and foremost. You need to be aware of who and what is going on in your community. Also, you need to access groups that are already there, such as the ACLU, the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, the Urban League, the NAACP, and even folks like the Occupy movement that are definitely going to be advocates of maintaining the rights that we have, because gradually they're being eroded away. These folks are taking our rights. They're doing things to us as citizens that we are guaranteed that should not happen. And you shouldn't be in a situation where it's costing you life, limb, money to defend yourself against acts by, you know, an authority figure that are, you know, for rights that you're supposed to be guaranteed. You shouldn't have to worry about the police beating you up or, you know, arresting you for saying something that maybe they personally don't agree to, or that someone is not in agreement with. It's not, you know, what America was, you know, built upon. The founding fathers would, you know, are probably rolling over in their graves as we speak with some of the things that are going on as far as the atrocities that are happening to people's rights. And to go a step further, the fact that people aren't defending their rights, they're not standing up for themselves, they're not banding against anyone. I mean, if you take a look back into history, you say 300 years ago, you know, here in the United States, we accuse people in the Middle East, people that are Islamic, of the Islamic faith, that are Muslim, of being terrorists. 300 years ago, who was the terrorist? I mean, if you were in Boston, if you were an American, or what became later known as an American, if you were in the colonies, you were a terrorist at that point, just by virtue of where you lived. And
you know, speaking of history, America has a tradition of was built by slaves, and the new resurrection, the new incarnation of the slave trade is in the prison systems. There's a strong emphasis on prison labor, and that's really what's I think is what's driving this sort of police state. It's a lot of it has to do with money to keep America still productive since NAFTA. I mean, we saw the rise of the war on drugs. We saw the rise of the rise of the anti-union labor, which is driving down the price of the price of labor in America, the price of labor in Mexico and in China. And what's really happening is they're trying to arrest as many people as possible, get them in prison, so that private corporations can make more and more profits. While paying people less and less.
Well, America has the highest percentage of prisoners of the whole world.
Yeah, by far.
And we're far under the amount of population of many countries in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that the #1 prison country would probably be something like China, just because of their oppressive policies. But they're actually more lenient than we are.
And it seems like it seems like this huge abstract idea. The world economies creating this necessity for what is slave labor, but it's affecting people that people that we know, people in our community. It's not something that you read about in books or watch on TV. It's something that's going to be coming through your front door, or, tasering you
I definitely agree, and I mean, I think that that's why, as far as community, people need to kind of come out of their shell and whole, as far as community by ethnicity, community groups by religion, and look at your community greater, because there is a global prison economy that is developing, and none of us, I mean, right now we're facing, you mentioned the war on drugs. This is basically a war on poverty. It's a war on people for being poor. We're going to take advantage of you. You have less rights because you don't have the money to defend yourself. And it's not fair, because many of us now are in a situation where our economy is kind of tanking, and we are going to end up poor. What people that were working class, blue collar folks are now in situations where you're unemployed or you're underemployed, and that's prime time example of folks that are being taken advantage of. And these are the people that find themselves incarcerated, and sometimes unjustly and unduly. There's no need to lock someone up, in my opinion, for some of the minor crimes that are alleged, and even these people are convicted to or accepting plea bargains to preserve as much of their freedom as they can, when they know they're in a situation where they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely an economy that's being driven. The United States has gone from being world hegemon, we're #1, to a situation where we're much like Brazil, where the powers that be are eliminating the middle class. I mean, it makes me wonder why we even have the eagle as our national emblem and a national symbol, which is one that you would associate with a strong, fierce, predatory bird that is at the top of the food chain, when we're behaving more like guppies. And if you've ever seen guppies in a fish tank, they have offspring, and you see these little offspring in there, and the larger fish eat the offspring, and that's basically where we're at this stage in the economy and the social atmosphere that is being presented by basically becoming a fledgling police state.
Yeah. We'll put guppies on the flag then. For those of our viewers who want to check out Free Jauron Pigg, you can go to Facebook and just search for it there.
Also look for events with the Free Jauron Pigg movement. Look for different ways to show your support and help out. These are real people in need of help, you know, and you know, I think it's upon all of us to do what we can to you know, make sure that this doesn't snowball, and you know, form a core, you know, to keep us protected against these tides of injustice.
Any closing thoughts you'd like to?
I'd like to just thank you guys for having me, and thank you for that opportunity to present what's going on in my life, because I'm one small person, just like everybody else, and hopefully folks can rally around this issue and find truth and force the hand of law enforcement, of our court systems, to be fair and play by the rules that we have in place in this country. You know, I'm hoping to see, you know, myself vindicated legally. I want to see my father free and my family together and everyone happy. And I mean, as a person that you know, values those things like most Americans, I hope that those things happen, and they happen soon. So again, I just appreciate Venue to convey my thoughts and some of my opinions and the fact of some of the things that are going on. And I just want to tell people, question the authority, question the knowledge, and fight the power structure if it is not one that is you know, going to benefit the community greater, if it is not one that is based in the ideas of what being American is.
Agreed.
Well, thank you for standing up.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.